Let's speak to the Labour MP for Norwich South, Clive Lewis, who's at a solidarity protest. He was at a solidarity protest outside an asylum hotel in his constituency. Thank you very much for speaking to us. What was it like when you were at that protest this evening?
Peaceful. It was a fantastic atmosphere. It was one of the everyday people of Norwich coming together, standing together, because millions of people across this country, they've been absolutely appalled at what has materialised and transpired on their television screens and social media over the last week. You know, the racist and fascist thugs that have been rampaging across this city, across this country, they're a minority. But last week, they looked like they were the majority. But I think from the pictures you're showing, from what we saw in Norwich, what we've seen in Northampton, from what we've seen in Walthamstow and Finchley, in towns and cities and communities across the country, we are the many, they are the few. And I think that was made really clear here in Norwich tonight. And yes, there are people who we know were fascists who turned up tonight, but they were outnumbered. It was a peaceful protest. We wanted to show our solidarity and support to the asylum seekers in the hotel that were behind us. I spoke to some of the people that worked in the hotel, some of the guards. They understood why we were there. They were grateful that we were there. And it was really a show of support to say that they're not alone and that actually we do stand together on when things like this happen. And I'm very, very proud tonight to be the MP for Norwich South, very proud to be a part of that. I'm very proud to stand with my community in the face of this monstrosity, frankly.
The people standing alongside you earlier this evening, what are some of the things that they were saying to you?
It was just, so many people. I think people were first of all grateful that an MP was there. They shouldn't be. I mean, I think MPs of anyone that thinks that this is reprehensible, you know, I think they should feel free to turn up and support peaceful protest and peaceful solidarity gatherings to say that these people, these racist and fascist terrorists, do so not in our name, and that we will support our mosques, our synagogues, all of the different communities within our cities and communities. We will look after them. And you know, people were saying to me, you know, they were saying they felt that they were doing something. They felt pleased that they were there. They felt pleased that they actually had people standing next to them shoulder to shoulder. Social media is fine, and you can sometimes be forgiven for thinking that we're in the minority on certain social media platforms like X, and there are questions to be answered about that. But actually being physically stood next to people in solidarity over a cause, which I think is very just, it's a fantastic feeling. It warms the cockles of the soul and rekindles your faith and hope in humanity after, frankly, yes, it has been dented this past week. And I think it was something which I think many people will take away. We know that there are other protests and demonstrations and shows of solidarity that will be coming up this week, and we will be at that. So I think it strengthened our resolve to face these people down.
What of the future then? Because the sentiment that's been expressed through violence, wanton violence on the streets, that hasn't gone away and will not go away overnight.
No, I think you need to be really clear. These kind of reactions that you're seeing on your screen now are not going to solve the problem. They're necessary because they send a real signal to the rest of this country that they are not the majority. They're the minority, a very violent, very racist minority. And I think it's important for people, perhaps some who are sitting on the fence, who don't quite understand what's going on. It's really important for them to see that there are millions of people in this country who are decent, good human beings and will stand up and be counted. I think that's the first thing. Last week was their blitzkrieg. They had that, but it's now coming up against the reality. But longer term, the way that you stop that petri dish of racism from growing is by making sure that people have decent public services, that they have decent jobs, decent pay, rights at work, that they have purpose in their life, that we have public services and local authorities that can actually make a difference to people's lives. These are the things that people need. People need hope. And that's the job of government. That's the job of politicians to do that. And I'm afraid, for too long, after 15 years of austerity, 60 years of an economic system that has basically plundered the public realm, this is what happens. History told us that's what happens when you do this. And we haven't listened to history. When you impoverish people, physically and psychologically, people are more susceptible to hate mongers, and that's what happens. So we need our politicians to step up. But the second thing is, and I think there's a reckoning for the media and for politicians across all political parties, stop with the rhetoric, because it's not just the far right that are responsible here. We're all responsible. The demonization of migrants, of immigrants, of asylum seekers, it has to stop. If you talk about a hostile environment, they'll talk about deportations. Then you move on to deportations, they move on to pushing the boats back into the sea. You move on to pushing the boats back into the sea, and then they end up, well, we know where it ends. So you can't triangulate with hate. You have to stand up against it. You have to draw a line. We need a humane, responsible immigration system in this country, an asylum system, but it has to be one based on humanism, humanity, love, respect. Yes, there are limits. We all understand that, but let's start from a perspective and a point of humanity, and that has to be part of the discourse that we see in Parliament. Now, we have had a government that for the past 14 years has sown hate and division. Well, they're gone, and we have a new government, a Labour government. It now needs to show the way as to how we're going to go forward on this, to make sure that we're not back here in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. Frankly, I spoke to a woman tonight who said to me, I didn't expect to be living through the 1930s. Well, I hope she's not, and I hope the outcome will be fundamentally different. And tonight, seeing these pictures, I feel that it will be.
Are you confident then that Sir Keir Starmer can provide that framework of humanity that you speak of?
You know what? Every crisis is also an opportunity. And Keir Starmer has a clear opportunity now to come out to the British people. And yes, I understand you've had a law and order crackdown, but there's also an opportunity now for some political narrative to tell a story about this country, about the kind of country it should be. What kind of country are we going to be going into the 21st century? What are the values that are going to define us? Do we believe in human rights? Do we believe in social and economic justice? Do we believe in investing in our communities? Do we believe that everyone should have opportunities and chances? That's what Keir Starmer can turn around at this moment. There's a moment where people are looking for a political narrative and political leadership. This is that moment. It's a crisis, but it can be turned around to the advantage of everyone in this country to make sure that small minority of racists and fascists grow no more. That's what he has to do, and I believe he has it in him to do it. Let's see if he does.
Clive Lewis, thank you very much for speaking to us. Let's cross to Bristol now. Dan Whitehead is standing by for us. Dan, what's happening?